So the first topic shall be bad advice, and this bad advice concerns exactly when teachers or influencers, like opinion leaders on some educational channels, Instagram, other mass media, they indiscriminately recommend watching the series in English. I'm still slightly ill, sorry. So they recommend watching the series, and I consider that, well, really an ill piece of advice, because for many people that I have talked to, watching something that is not adapted is quite challenging task, and very often turns out to be demotivating. That is because, to cut story short, they have never been trained to listen to English speech, and they have never had enough exposure to English speech. For that matter, instead of recommending series to everyone without asking what their level is, what their interests are, because some people are not very big fans of series. For instance, me, I never watch them in my own language and have no reason to watch them in English, for example, and wouldn't want to. And you can imagine that if somebody is not into something, or even is negative about it, and starts doing that in foreign language, the negativity might double, and the impact will be, well, really deteriorating on the further education process. So instead of that, if a person, well, if the question is how do I improve my English, that's a very big question. I'm not going to answer it now because it requires a different different conversation. Basically, it's a very big conversation. But if it is about the listening skill, so for 2 years now I have been practicing this method. So we call this transcribing or scripting, and people are basically supposed to take an audio, usually from some beginner or elementary book for the starters, especially for those who only start their journey in English. So they take an audio and they make a transcript. They make subtitles. They write down everything they hear, and after they have finished, after they wrote everything they could, they compare it with the original script, which usually a decent student's book provides. And that exercise should be repeated, well, every week, ideally 2-4 recordings per week. I have a message from Daisy Beans on YouTube. Let me scroll down. I forgot. Isn't Wednesday supposed to be the Russian stream? No, Saturdays are Russian stream, and Wednesdays, well, in my place it's already Thursday, but technically for half a planet it is still Wednesday. Yeah, so Wednesdays are for English podcasts, the repetition of what happened on Saturday. And I was just saying in the beginning that I might make them less frequently because I need to reconsider what kind of content I want to talk about within this educational program, because not all the questions that I talk about during the Russian stream can be discussed here, as they are linked with the educational system here. How I am, well, could be better, to be honest. If I were better, I would have started earlier. Maybe I would have played The Sims even, but it took me a very powerful mental effort to go live, and comply with my own schedule. And yeah, my throat is still kind of croaky. So if not to complain much, could be better, but I'm hoping to get better soon, and in all possible ways, in physical way and mental way. Yeah, so let's get back to the listening stuff. So people do such scripting exercises, and I usually say to them that the first results will come in 2-3 months. So it's a very long story, but a lot of learners actually are menaced or threatened by the fear that listening will never be easy, that they will never be able to do that properly, that they will always try hard to understand and fail. And so one important thing is to break this fear, to show them that no, they can do that. And usually after 2 or 3 months of such hard work, people start to feel the first results, and that gives them the fuel, the necessary enthusiasm to keep on going. And so after half a year or a year of trying, they eventually get to the point where they can aim at harder recordings and maybe can start watching something on YouTube. And here it's very important to, for the coach, for the teacher to help find proper content. And well, give me a second. And here it's important not to impose content, not to say, well, watch this channel, but to actually encourage to start looking for the stuff that the person will want to watch under any circumstances, like at any so it has to be something they would watch in their own language. So it probably should be about their hobbies, about their interests. And if you, and they will ask you, like, what do you recommend? And you should return this question like, no, I cannot recommend anything, because that's your journey, that's your task to find things you will definitely watch without any prompting, without any extra motivation from your educators, from your daily plans. You just go to YouTube and enjoy what you see there, but in English. And that's the thing. And after that, and that will probably take already around 2 years of practice, they might start challenging themselves with what other people recommend watching, their teacher, their friends, people who speak English around them. So they at that point should be developed enough to begin this journey. And so it's actually quite scary. I mean, training your listening skill is a long road, a long journey, especially in our educational system. In my country, the attention given is so, well, it could be like 5% of the learning process, or sometimes less, and people are never encouraged to do more of that. And well, there is no English around because the country is not an English-speaking country. And we have all these ramifications. For many people, the listening part of English is a phobia, actual phobia. For me, it was a phobia too, and actually, it was still a phobia when I was already teaching. And 5 years ago, I just kind of forced myself to switch into audiobooks, and through hours, hundreds of hours of listening, I finally feel confident enough. But still, I am sometimes nervous about series and films because I don't watch them, and I'm not very accustomed to their pace of speech and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of psychological questions also in this listening sphere, which I actually didn't touch upon during the Russian stream. It's like sometimes you meet a person who speaks your own native language, your mother tongue, and something is wrong and you have to ask to repeat something, like just the vibe is not right. And I'm sure you've met such people. So, and in this case, it's pure psychology, pure communication stuff, and has nothing to do with how well you speak the language or understand the language. And some people have, well, such articulation that I think natives don't always understand what this person says. We just kind of piece the story together, and if there are gaps missing, we don't pay too much attention because we get the general message and we skip some elements of that story. And when you're a learner, you don't get 5 or 10% or 20% of what you heard or you were supposed to hear, and you get stressed because, well, you're not good enough. And so we need to relax sometimes about that. Feel the same about watching shows in Urdu. So you mean you feel stressed that you don't understand 100% of the content there, I guess. And wasn't used to the pace of it about a year ago, but now I'm comfortable with it. Oh, I see. So you have been practicing. Yeah, so it's practice. And one more thing I have to say here is some people are very perfectionist and they would like to understand this 100%. And if they get to the stage where they start watching the series, they will repeat the same moment in an episode again and again to understand every single word. They will turn on the subtitles and watch the show with subtitles. And so they will spend half an hour where there was a 5-minute episode, for example. And that is not the best idea, actually, because I guess, in my opinion, the game changer is how much time you're exposed to something that you're supposed to learn. And so if you have a choice between watching 5 episodes or watching one but very thoroughly, I would recommend watching the 5 episodes because, first of all, the exposure amasses, like you have to be exposed for a long period of time to different things. Secondly, in series, things repeat. So actors repeat, patterns repeat, words repeat. So if you are obsessing about the first episode, probably there are things that you are supposed to understand only by episode 3, and you're obsessing about the wrong things. You have to give yourself time with a new book, with a new series, with a new film. You need to give yourself time, your brain, you need to give your brain time to adapt to the things that are happening there. So I've always understood the language but hardly spoke it right. So that would be my recommendation about series. Do not watch them until you're ready at least a bit. Instead, go for transcribing. Probably, if you're listening to me, you no longer need this. So it's kind of a recommendation to maybe teachers or just a piece of common knowledge, a piece of my knowledge, my experience, that we need to climb this ladder bit by bit, starting with difficult but bearable exercises, doable exercises with transcribing, then go into some hobby-related, interest-related content on YouTube or other media, and only then you can go to high-paced content like series and films and everything like that, audiobooks and news, especially news, is very high paced. It's like maximum information, minimum time spent on that. So it's devilishly hard to understand. Yeah, so that's where we stop question number 1, and we'll go to question number 2. But maybe there are